unknown. And I would agree with Spurgeon in his assertion that I am a Christian and therefore I am a Calvinist. And if, that is the purest teaching of the doctrinal bent of the scriptures that I am aware of. When I find another one, I'll be something else. But I don't think there is another one, because to be that is to be biblical. But in the pockets where, and let's just use ourselves for instance. We're not busting at the seams here. Nobody would make that assertion. But we're growing. We have visitors to come in. We have baptisms happening, professions of faith happening, and subsequent baptism. God is blessing the teaching of His Word in this place. Now, is that to say that in other places where the teaching is biblical that aren't growing, that's some indication upon their teaching? No. But I am saying this: in areas where young men and women, particularly among the young 20-somethings, there are certain areas of our country where they are absolutely on fire with the pure doctrine of the Scriptures. I meet young men and women who are Calvinists. They don't call themselves Primitive Baptist, but they are Calvinist. And I'm going to tell you something. They can run circles around most any preacher I know in their knowledge. They study, and I shake in my shoes when they ask me a question. For the simple reason that these people dig, and they know. And they want to know more. That's encouraging to me. They're writing books. They're changing seminaries. Southern Theological Baptist Seminary in Kentucky is the flagship seminary of the Southern Baptist Convention. And it has a very, very large contingent of young men and women that are Calvinists, and they've dug in their heels and they will not let go. Much to the bane of the rest of the Southern Baptists. They're not happy about it. They'll learn to live with it.
Amen to that.
Christianity Today had a not so, here about a year ago, had a not so kind article about them. And some pretty scathing things were said. But the fact of the matter is, their eyes have been opened to the truth. And once you see that, you don't go back. And so I'm hopeful in those respects. I'm very hopeful in the regard of what God is doing in some places in this country. But one of the things, brothers and sisters, and this is a way off subject.
It's all right.
One of the things that the church has got to come to the realization of, and I'm not talking about this church, I'm talking about the church, is that when you turn from this, in whatever respect, if you turn from it in your pulpit, and by the way, there's no church any stronger than a pulpit, period. That's an impossibility.
That's right.
You will never be any stronger than your pulpit. And I ain't talking about that piece of wood that stands up there.
Right.
I'm talking about the teaching that comes from it. That's an utter, absolute impossibility. But when you swerve in whatever direction, the pulpit, the children, the teaching in their respect, when you start making concessions to the world in whatever arena you want to speak, and I'll give you a short for instance. I had a lady come to me this past week. She will remain nameless, and I'm going to make the reference as generic as I can.
Anonymous.
Spoke with me about an experience that a friend of hers had with communion. The friend didn't understand it, what had happened at the church they visited. And here's what happened. During the service, some crackers, wafers, whatever you want to call them, and a thimbleful of wine were given to the congregants, and the folks in the congregation. And they were instructed, at your leisure, take the Lord's Supper.
At your leisure.
That was the only reference that was made to what they did. There was never one mention made of doing this in remembrance of Christ, what he accomplished for us on Calvary. There was never one mention made of the wine representing his blood, the bread representing his body broken for us. And I was asked the question, Brother Hugh, what should I have told her? I said, well, if I had been you, I would have said, well, I hope you enjoyed your crackers and juice. Because that's what you had.
Where did you say this was?
I'm not going to.
Oh,
I didn't purposefully.
I didn't get where it was.
They had crackers and juice. That's all they did.
Had a little coffee break.
They had a snack during whatever went on elsewise in that service. That was not communion. But brothers and sisters, when the church sees that is okay, she's in trouble. But the fact of the matter is, those in that church don't even know it. The right administration of the sacraments is one of the hallmarks of what it takes to be a church. And when you no longer do that, I said the right administration of the sacraments. They made a show of it. They made an effort. But they accomplished nothing.
You know, when it's showtime, it's showtime, and when it's something else time, it's something else time.
So, that being said, I'll hop off of my soapbox.
You did good. God bless you, brother.
Come with me to the Gospel of Luke for just a few moments.
Yeah, I've been in church when they have communion. They pass it around. The kids would just reach in and get them a handful.
Yeah. You know, it.
And nothing to say. I mean, they just let them do it.
He thought that was funny.
What's that? What you doing, Claire?
He asked me to go get him a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's funny.
Mammy, they're bringing the grape juice.
Oh, goodness. Chapter 2 of Luke. What did I tell y'all to turn to?
You just said Luke chapter 2, and we waiting on the verse number.
I'm sorry. Just start with me at verse 1.
Chapter 2?
Yeah. Chapter 2, verse 1, it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Understand this was the known world under the control of the province of Rome. Nobody from
Away from
whatever
that.
this country would have
It
been,
would have been the-
known as anything at that time, because it wasn't discovered as far as the thinking world with written history was concerned.
Leif Erikson came later.
But this was the world under the influence and control of the Roman system of government. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. Have you ever noticed how we think that we run things in our own homes. We think that we run things in our churches, and we think that we run things in our local city governments, and we think that we run things in our state governments and our national governments, that we have a voice and a hand in the direction of things. And when this decree went out from Caesar Augustus thought that that was just something that he felt needed to be done, that it would be for the good of Rome and would accomplish his purposes for the purpose of increasing the treasury. But brothers and sisters, that decree was no accident. That decree brought a young couple to a particular place on a particular day that was foretold generations before, right down to the city of Bethlehem. All went to be taxed, every one into his own country city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, into the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. Joseph was a descendant of King David, and that was the place of his parentage. It was the place of his historical descendantship, and that was where he needed to go. Not ultimately for the purpose of being counted and taxed, but ultimately rather for the purpose that his son, the one that he was going to be the adoptive father of, was going to be born there, as the scriptures had foretold. He was to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. It's ironic to me that, now we have no clue, brothers and sisters, whether Mary walked every step of those several miles in that journey. I've made that journey by bus. I wouldn't want to walk it. But we have no clue whether she walked it or rode a donkey. I think it's just kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling thing when we see Mary on the donkey. The donkey is never mentioned in any of the scriptures, her coming into Bethlehem on an animal of any sort, nor that one accompanied them even. But if you consider, I know myself probably 25 women that have been put on bed rest the last 3 months of their pregnancy, and longer, some of them. And this woman, whenever they departed, would have been